Okay. Cool. So yeah, thank you, Res, for that introduction. My name is Danish Naglekar. If you don't know me, I am a Microsoft MVP in business application and also senior technical architect. And today we are going to look into one of the tools that I had created for the community called Dataverse DevTools, and how you can get started with it. Now, if you have seen Benedict's Fiddler presentation, you got to see how he was using TypeScript and he was using Visual Studio Code to do a lot of his coding, right? But then he was using Sparkle to do the deployments. Now, Sparkle, he was just using Sparkle's deploy thing, right? But then Sparkle is not, it only works on Windows machines. So I wanted to create something that was cross-platform. So that's why, and I wanted to build it into VS Code and have an ability for people to just work out of Visual Studio Code itself and not go anywhere else. So that was the reason of creating this tool, and let's see how we can get started with it. So what is Dataverse DevTools? So Dataverse DevTools helps you connect to the Dataverse environment or any environment. It gives you an ability to create or connect to an environment either using username and password or either using your Microsoft login pop-up. Now, when you're using Microsoft login pop-up, if you have MFA enabled on your on the logins, then you can get all those access, and then you can still connect to the Dataverse environment using the tool. Now, word of cautions, Microsoft login pop-up is still having some issues, which we are trying to resolve and see how we can make that in better, right? So that is still having some issues. So if you find yourself having issues with Microsoft login pop-up, then I would recommend using username and password. I'm also thinking of adding a feature where you can bring your own app registration and not use Microsoft login pop-up or not use username and password. So there are certain things that needs to be still added to the tool. And again, it's just recently created. It's very new, but I'm still trying to add more features to the tool. So if you have any feature requests, please let me know, and then we'll look into it. And the second thing is it also helps you create those TypeScript projects with all the configuration that is loaded. So if you saw, again, Benedict's presentation, and I'm going to show it again, is like there's a lot of things that you have to do when you're building the TypeScript project, and you should be aware of those things. And it's always repeated, right? So if you are working on projects, and then if you're trying to create this TypeScript project, it takes about like 10-15 minutes to set it up, test it, and everything. So to minimize those efforts is what this tool does, is it just lets you create those templates, like how Betim used his own template, which listed out all the components that are needed for writing a plugin. So in similar concept is been used here as well. It gives you that template with all the preloaded config. And then, okay, forgot one thing. So, and then the last, like, what is Dataverse DevTools? Is it also gives you an ability to upload web resources from VS Code. So you don't have to go into your Dataverse environment and then pick a web resource, pick a file to upload, and then save and publish and whatever, right? So those are the things that I wanted to implement right from the tool that you are going to use to do the coding, and that is going to be your Visual Studio Code, right? So again, why use Dataverse DevTools? Now, some of the features I already said before, but exactly what are the main key highlights of using the Dataverse DevTools? Now, one of the key highlight is the tool remembers the connection that you have connected to the environment per project. So when you say you are working on multiple projects, let's say you're working on project A, project B, and project C. Project A is connected to X environment, project B is connected to Y environment, and project C is connected to Z environment, right? So you are connected to different environments. Now, if you open project A all the time, let's say, but then so occasionally you also have to open project B. Now, if you're opening project B, then you have to go and connect to that Y environment. But what the tool does is it remembers that when you open project B, you had already connected to Y environment. So it automatically goes and connects it for you. I'm going to demo that in this presentation as well. And the second is initializing TypeScript project. Again, as I said before, it gives you an ability to initialize a TypeScript project, which loads all the configuration for you. But you also have the ability to load either a plain TypeScript config project or a project with Webpack config as well. It also gives you an ability to add a new TypeScript file too. So when you're adding a new TypeScript file, you can see the snippet, right? So you don't have to write all that code again. So you get the basic snippet loaded for you. So it becomes easier for you to get started with writing the code itself, the core code. Then early bound typings. It generates the early bound typings, and as Benedict was using Sparkle to not Sparkle, but he was using Dataverse to generate the early bound typings. Here I'm using the similar concept, not Dataverse to generate early bound typings as well, which you can use when you're writing code. Now, there is going to be some integration with Dataverse, which I haven't not got into, but I'm trying to see how we can integrate with Dataverse as well at some point. The last thing is this feature was recently implemented, is called Smart Upload. So what Smart Upload does is it goes and identifies all the files in your local and identifies all the files on the server, and then see how you can like which files are matching. So it runs through some algorithms and then identifies which files might be a match. So and it also gives you a match confidence as well. So we'll look into that too in today's demo. So yeah, that's it. So let's get into it and see what this tool is all about. So let me go and open a tool. And so first thing that you would see here is I've opened a folder called tool demo, and then tool demo is already connected to this environment, which is called powermaverick.crm.dynamics.com. Right now, what if I close this? And this is what I wanted to showcase first is the tool remembers the connection that you were already connected to. I have a few other projects open here, but it's not connected to any environment, so it's not showing anything in the status bar. So let me just close this project and then let's reopen the project again. Yeah, tool demo. And then you'll see that it's not showing nothing because it's right now when you open up a Visual Studio project, it goes and enables extensions, and then it goes and do the authentication. And once it does the authentication, see, it was so pretty fast that it was able to connect to that environment. But not only that, if you go to Dataverse DevTools here, you can also see that it loaded with all the entities in that instance, and also all the web resources in that instance. So now you would say, how did you get this icon to show up here? That's because there's an extension. So first thing that you have to do to use this tool is you have to go to the extensions and then search for Dataverse DevTools. Yeah, and that's the tool. And you click on it, and then you'll get an install command over here, and then you can install it globally. Once you have installed it, you should be able to see this icon, which will say Dataverse DevTools. Okay. So as I said, now the entities are loaded, the web resources are loaded, and here are all the connections. So first thing is we will try to go and create a connection. So to create a connection, we would need the URL, which I forgot what the URL is. OK, so click on plus. It will ask you for the URL, and you just need to provide this basic URL here. Then it will give you an option whether you want to select Microsoft login prompt or whether you want to select username and password. So let's just go and check the username and password flow first. I'm just going to copy my username. I'm going to provide the password. And then here you would then provide a friendly name for your connection. So that friendly name can be anything. So I would say Dataverse Summit. And then it gives you an option to select whether it is going to be your dev environment, your QA, your UAT, your prod, whatever you want to select. Let's say it's going to be my QA environment. So here you can actually see all this categorization. So my QA environment is separated out from my dev environments. And then because I connected to the Dataverse environment, and that's what is connected here. And that's how the entities and the web resources are loaded. You can also do a quick connect as well, which using this button. So if I click on it, you'll see that it's trying to get entity metadata and the web resources, and it will reload. Now the instance is the environment is the same environment, so you don't see any changes. But if it was a different environment, you would have seen the data being changed here. So that is how you would connect using username and password. But what if you want to connect using Microsoft login prompt? So for Microsoft login prompt, same thing. Let me copy the URL again. But this time I'm going to select Microsoft login prompt instead. Now, once you select Microsoft login prompt, again, it's going to do the same thing. I'm going to say Dataverse Summit MSFT login. And this time, let me select UAT. So what it does is it goes and loads that authentication. Now, I was already authenticated on this instance, so it automatically just signed in without even asking for credential. But if you have not signed in already, it would have shown the Microsoft login page where you had to enter username, password. If it was MFA, then you have to go through the MFA. And then once it logs in, then you should see this page over here. You can close this page. And then if you go and look at the connection, it's already connected here as well. OK. So those are the two ways of connecting to an environment. Now, you can see some of the environment connection details as well. So let's say if I have this username and password connection, I can see, I can right click that connection and then say show connection details. And what it does is it tells you the URL, it tells you the login type, gives you the username as well. Now, if I open a Microsoft login prompt, connection details, then instead of showing me the username, it would show me access token and refresh token, which we would be able to see it here. So it's giving me that access token and refresh token here, because this is the environment that I'm connected to. If I'm not connected to an environment, I don't have the access token and refresh token in the memory, so I cannot show it. So those are some things that you could do with connections. You can also open a connection as well. So if I want to open up a connection, I can just click on this and it opens up the connection. If you don't want it, you can go and delete the connection as well. So a lot of things, just managing your connections. Then is entities, right? So you have all your entities listed here, but they're like all of the entities, right? You want an ability for filtering down your entities. Let's say I am working on one of my solution, and in this solution I have 5 entities or 5 tables. I shouldn't use the word entity anymore. So I have 5 tables, and I'm just going to work out of this solution. So I want an ability to filter the list of entities and only show these 5 entities. So you can use the filter button on this section, and if you click on it, it would show list of all the solutions, and my solution name is called demo. So I'm going to select that, and it just filters the list of entities to that particular solution only. If you want to clear the filter, the button image changed. So now button image is showing filter with a cross on it, which says it's already filtered. So now if you want to remove a filter, I can click on it again, and then it gets removed. And see how how fast it is, right? because I'm caching all the data, so it becomes faster when you're dealing with all this metadata information. You can also right-click an entity and then generate typings, and this is what we would be seeing in some time, what this typing is all about. Same thing you can do with web resources as well. So web resources has this filter. You can do the filter, click on the solution, and then it filters and shows only the scripts that are available in that solution. So for example, if I go to web resources, I have two scripts. One is called demo script and the other one is called demo 100 match script, right? Those are the only two scripts I can see here. Now, if I go to the Explorer, you'll see that I have a demo TS file and demo 100 match TS file, which I've built that generated these JavaScripts, demo.javascript and demo 100 match.javascript, right? Now, the name is demo.js and here the name of this file is demo 100 match.js. Both of this file are present on the web resources here, but one of them is having this path and the name, which is matching to the path and the name that is in the local. The second one is actually not matching the name because the name is demo space script, whereas the file name is just demo.js. The path is also not matching, right? So path is JS and then it has demo.js, right? But it still has a demo.js in it. So let's see what happens when I use Smart Match. So this is my Smart Match button on the web resources. So if I click on Smart Match, it's going to show me both of those files as matching files. So it shows you what the local file name is. It shows you what the server path is, and then it also shows you the server file name as well. But it shows you the confidence level of the match. So first one is showing 60 because it's not matching the server path, and it is also not matching the display name. But what matches is this part of it. Part of the server path is matching. That's why it's showing you the 60% match. For here, it is showing you 100% match because everything matches. The local path matches and the display name matches as well. So that is the reason it's showing you the 100 level match. Now this is just showing you the the matching files, but it is not actually connected. And that's why you can say, do you want to link this? And this is just a recommendation that it is providing. So you can go and say, okay, I want to link this 100 match. So it just went ahead and linked it. And then now it gave you an option to upload that file if you want to. Now you can either use this upload button over here. You can even use upload all. If you have multiple files connected, you can use upload all, or you can even do a one-off just by right clicking and saying upload web resources. Now let's say I've not connected demo.js, but if I right click demo.js, I can still see upload web resources. And why is that? So let's see what happens. So if I am gonna click on upload web resources, it's gonna give me an option here saying, do you want to link to an existing web resource or do you want to upload as a new web resource? So as I know, demo.js already exists, so let's go and link it to an existing one. And it should have, yep, there you go. So it should have, it took a while, I don't know why, but it gave me list of all the web resources that I need to link my demo.js. So I'm gonna say link it to this demo script. Yeah. So now I've linked both the files. The Smart Match actually doesn't update unless until you click on it. So I've linked both the files, right? But as you saw, when I clicked on right clicked and then said upload web resources, it prompted me for some options. But if I am to right click demo 100 match.js and then say upload web resources, once you have connected it, the tool would not ask you again whether you want to upload it as a web resource or whether you want to link it, because the linking is actually saved on this file and it's actually part of your source control. So even if, let's say, you have a cross or you have multiple developers working across multiple things, the linking is actually saved in your repo. So the next developer who is going to join the team, he doesn't have to worry about which JavaScript files are linked to which JavaScript files on the server. So from local to server, which JavaScript file links with which, because that information already exists in your repo. So you can just, if I'm a new developer, I pull down the repo from the source, and then I can just right click and then say upload web resources, and it would get uploaded to that correct environment and to the correct file. Okay, let's see if there are any questions before I move on. Yeah, so you need the minimum version that you need. Well, I'm on 1.62.2, and if you go to Dataverse DevTools, let me just open it here. It will tell you what is the minimum version needed. Thought it showed it somewhere. I'll have to take a look. What is the minimum version? So minimum version is 1.58, and the one you had was 1.52. So 1.58 is what the minimum version of the VS Code needs to be. Okay, hope that answers that question. The second question is from Philip saying, is the linker file in the same format as the mapping XML file used by Pack and Solution Packager? I have not used the mapping XML file from Pack command yet, so I would say it's not. And it might be a little different. It's based on whatever I wanted it to be. But I can take a look at what Pack command generates and then see if I can match that format. So it would become easy for you to switch back and forth. Okay, so next is looking at the TS project. So let's look at how to create your TypeScript project. Now, what we looked at was all about connections, entities, and web resources. So first, let's go and connect this to an instance. Okay. You don't need to connect to an instance. I just like to be connected to my environment all the time. And then now you can actually create a TypeScript project by right-clicking your Explorer bar, and then you have this option called Create Dataverse TypeScript Project. You can also create it using this shortcut called Control-D, Control-T. So you can either use shortcut or you can use this option. When you use this option, it asks you whether you want to do a TypeScript only project, or do you want to load a Webpack configurations as well. So if you select TypeScript only, it would go and load all the project structure for you, and it also does your npm install. So you don't have to worry about npm install and whatnot. Now it loads your ESLint configuration. It loads your prettier configuration. It loads the needed TypeScript configuration as well. Now in TypeScript configuration, it also provides you with additional checks that you can enable or disable. Right, so it makes things a little easier if you want to control it. And then it also provides you with some folders. So you can see that it has the source folder, which is asking for your TypeScript. Then it has a typing folder, which will have all the typings that we will be generating for early bound classes. And then it has the web resources, which has HTML and JavaScript folders in it. This is the folders that will be actually getting uploaded to Dataverse. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new file. So as I said, your project is one thing. Now, the second thing is if you want to add a new TypeScript file. So you can either use new file, but then once you use new file, you have to, let's say, provide a name. So demo.yes, you have to put in all the code here, which may become hectic because the initial code snippet is always the same whenever you're writing TypeScript. So let's delete that. And so what I did is I actually added a new command called add Dataverse TypeScript file. So whenever you add Dataverse TypeScript file, it asks you for the TypeScript file name. So let me do superhero demo. Again, that's the name of the file, right? So you click on it, it adds a new file. Now the benefit of adding it through this is it gives you the snippet loaded for you. So it creates that class, gives the same name, and it does that camel casing as well if you Pascal casing if you want. It loads that onload method, and it also gives you some options of how you can use it, how you can start using it. Now, let's go and add a typing for superhero. So because this is going to be superhero, I have a superhero entity. So let's just filter our entities. So that's my superhero entity, right? So I am gonna right click and then say generate typing. Now, whenever you do generate typing, it's gonna look at all the folder structures that you have here, and then it's gonna ask you in which folder do you want to copy the typing. Now, if you have loaded that project using the template, then typing is already provided for you. So I'm going to pick that typing folder, but you can change the project structure if you want, and it would still show you some of the directories that exist, and you can pick from those directories. So I'm going to select typings. So my typings exist here now. You can open this typing. It is based on the types XRM. So that is one of the package that is loaded for you. So you can see that it already exists, right? So you don't have to do any additional npm installs. Most of the npm packages that are needed for Dataverse are already included in here. So you don't have to worry about all the packages that needs to be installed. So once the typing is done, you go to the superhero demo and then you try to use the typing. Now, why do you want to use the typings? Now, here's a benefit. Well, because TypeScript is all about defining your types. And if you have properly defined your types, you get IntelliSense along with it. So that is one of the benefit of using typings. Now I have used superhero. So I'm going to use superhero class here. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually creating a form context with a type called xrm.superhero. And when I want to use it in my code, I can do form. So form context is equal to execution context dot get form context. Oh, get form context. Now the reason why I'm getting all this type aheads or IntelliSense is because I have that XRM types package installed, and that is why I'm getting all these benefits. But XRM types do not give me the entity level or early bounds for that particular entities, right? So that is where I'm making sure that my type is defined on the form context. So whenever I'm trying to use form context dot get attributes, and if I use this, I'm getting the IntelliSense with all the attributes that are only available for that particular entity. So I can see that I have stats, I have combat, power, speed, strength. These are all the attributes that are defined on that particular entity. So I can say race and then say get value. Yeah. So that is how you use IntelliSense as well. Now, before we move on, what we are going to do is we're going to write some code, And let's see what that code is going to do. Okay. So I have my superhero entity, and basically what we are going to do is we are going to we have this power stat section over here, and then this button yes and no would toggle that power stats. So if I'm saying no and saving it, it will hide it. If I click on yes and save it, it will show that power stats section. That's the basic example that we're going to do. Okay, so going back here, let me open up. So I have my form context defined on global class level scope. It has that class level scope. And I want my next method to be on save. And on save, I'm not going to define anything, right? My form context is already defined on the onload method. So my on save method, it's going to just use show hide stats, and then it's going to use form context dot get attribute, and then that attribute name is show hide power stats. So see how easy it becomes. And then next is not that one. Yeah, closed my CRM browser. Let me open that up. Okay, so right now, if I'm saying no and saving it, nothing happens, right? Because we don't have that JavaScript loaded in the system. So this is what we're going to do is use show logical names. So my tab name is general, and my section name is section underscore power stats. So I'm going to copy this tab general, and then in my code, I'm going to say let tab general is equal to form context dot tabs dot get, then my tab name. Yeah. Now, one of the things you might notice is, let me just do this again so you can see what happened. So I'm not copying the question mark. Okay. So I've written everything. I just pasted this in my question, or not question, sorry, semicolon. My semicolon automatically got added. The reason is that's because of Prettier's configuration. So that's why I like to use Prettier ESLint, so I can keep tabs on the errors, and some of the errors it automatically just fixes those formatting errors for me. Next is going to be let section stats, and then I'm going to use tab general dot sections, and then the section name is going to be section power stats. So I have got my tab, I've got my section. Now, based on show hide value, I want to set the section show hide. So stats dot set visible, and then the value is going to be based on show hide PS. Now, show hide PS is actually returning of type any. So we want to define that as Boolean. So it doesn't have, like, everything that you define basically should have if it has any in it. So it should basically have a type defined so you don't get any errors. So that is what my code is ready. So I'm going to go and build it. While it's building, let me go. It was quick. So my file is ready and my build was successful. Now, whenever I'm building it, it would generate the JavaScript file needed for it. And this is the JavaScript file. I can just right click on that JavaScript file and say upload web resource. And now I don't actually have a web resource. I'm going to say upload as a new web resource. And I'm going to select my demo solution and the name of my web resource. So superhero demo script. And then the path, if I want to give any path. So it's going to be scripts dot superhero demo.js. Okay. So now it's uploading the web resource. And if I go to my instance here and I do refresh, I should see the superhero demo script in here. So now as I have the superhero demo script, let's go in on the form and let's add that event and the file to the form. Okay, so the form library, first we need to add the library. It's going to be called hero. Come on. Okay, so superhero demo script is what I just uploaded. And add it, and then on load, so my form. Tree structure form. And on my form onload method, I'm gonna register my superhero demo function. And then it's gonna be superhero demo, which is my class name dot onload, which is my function name. And then I'm gonna pass the execution context as the first parameter. Similarly, I'm gonna add an event here as well. So first is going to be class name dot my function name. And this time I'm not going to pass in the execution parameter. Now, once I have my events all set up, save it. And then publish. Now, while it's publishing, let me go and see if there are any questions. Yeah, git length is also one of the thing. Manish is actually showing us an error. It's unverified right now. I know that because whenever you're creating this tool and I'm using this public authentication. So public authentication needs MPN ID associated to it. And I don't have MPN because I'm not Microsoft partner. I'm just individual open source developer. So that's why you see that unverified and it says app may be risky. So it's up to you. It's developed by me. You can go and look up the source and it's all open source. So you can pretty much go and see what the code is doing. It's not doing anything funky. I'm trying to see if I can get MPN ID associated to it somehow, but it's a little difficult to do that. And that is the reason it's Microsoft policy that anytime you have a public app ID registration, then you need to have an MPN ID associated to it. OK, so now this got published. Let's go and refresh it to see if our code works or not. I'm going to select no and save it. And then the section got hidden. OK, so pretty simple, straightforward thing. And now let's go and look at how the version differs if I'm going to do Webpack. So in the Webpack thing, same thing, go and create Dataverse project here and then select Webpack. Now, once you're selecting Webpack, it asks you for a namespace. Now, namespace are a nice way of identifying your code versus someone else's code. So let's say there are three different teams working. Let's say sales and support and marketing. Three teams are working together, but each one of them needs to have distinct file naming conventions. Then you can use that namespaces to identify whether the file was created by sales team or service team or marketing team. So in my case, I'm just going to say, let's say Dataverse Summit. Okay, so it loaded with similar structure, but it had this 3 new Webpack config files. And then it also has few more packages installed in it as well. So if I'm opening package.json, you will see that it has clean Webpack plugin. It has this 3 more additional packages installed in it. And also the npm script is different because now you have build dev and you also have build. Now build dev is going to build a file that is compatible for development environments, whereas build is going to build your file for production releases. So it will be optimized and it will remove those debugger statements, unnecessary comments, and all this other thing, and it would minify the file. So the file size actually becomes smaller. So you can have those kind of easy functionality. Or performance is what we are looking for when we are doing the package build using this. So same thing. First, we are going to connect to our instance. And then filter out everything, generate typings, put it in the typing folder, and then add a new file. Now, whenever you're doing Webpack config, let's just briefly look at Webpack config. So whenever you're doing Webpack config, it outputs the files, but then normally if you're doing just Node.js projects or Node TypeScript project, the output would normally be just one file. But then in our case, every TypeScript file should be outputted as its own JavaScript file. So those things are controlled by this entry attribute. Now, if I'm adding a new file, what happens is, and I'm going to do superhero demo. What happens is not only just the file is created with that snippet, but that file reference is also getting added in this Webpack config.js as well. So that whenever you're compiling it, it compiles and creates those JavaScript files that needs to be deployed to Dataverse. So as you can see, it created that file, superhero demo, with a slightly different syntax. And then in the Webpack config, it added that entry here. Okay, so with that, if I do build dev, the output is going to be produced in the JavaScript folder. And then now you have superhero demo.js here. And that's because of this entry. Now let's say I have another file, .js, and then I build it. It has 2 entries. One is for demo.js and the other one is for superhero demo.js. So that's why you see 2 files getting created here. Now, if I'm going to delete my TypeScript file, then you have to make sure that you're deleting the entry because I'm not taking care of it. Just because if you by mistakenly deleted it, we don't want to delete the reference and whatnot. So keep that here and then let's build it again just so that there are no issues. Yeah. Now here we also specified something called as namespace. That namespace is what shows up under library. And if you go and open up your JavaScript file, it would have that namespace here, Dataverse Summit. Then it would have the class name, and then it would have the method name. So now from 3 structure layering, you're going from two structure layering just by class name and method name. Initially, when we were doing that TypeScript project, we just provided the class name and then we provided the function name. But in that method, you cannot differentiate between those different teams. Whereas here, because you have that namespace, which can be specific to those teams, let's say sales team, right? So then you can have sales dot superhero demo dot onload, right? So now you can differentiate based on those three different teams and also the classes. So that's why 3-tier names like structure is actually more beneficial for scaling up your project if you want to. Okay, so our JavaScript file is ready, but it doesn't have the code that we need. So we can just go back to our plain JavaScript file and then copy the code as is, because it's going to be the same code. And it has a typing already installed, so it doesn't yell at us. But if you don't have the typing, it's gonna give you an error. So make sure that you have the typing installed. Now, same thing, same code, right? But then it's all done through Webpack. So nothing is actually changing in terms of how you would do the coding. And even if you're adding the files, the Webpack configuration is handled for you, so you don't have to worry about that as well. So there are little very smaller features, but very important because you're saving so much time and not have to worry about it. The only thing that you have to worry about is write code in your TypeScript files, and that's it. So now let's go and deploy. Well, I have to build it first. I keep forgetting that I have to build it before deploying. So keep that in mind. Now let's go and deploy this. Oh, you know what? Okay, link. We already have that file. Superhero demo script. So let's upload to that. Okay, so now it got uploaded. But now what's going to happen is, and just for sanity, I'm going to publish it one more time. Okay, yeah, it's taking time to publish, and that's it. So now what's going to happen is if I do a refresh, it's going to throw me an error. The reason is because initially we were going with that 2-tier structure, but because of Webpack, now we have 3-tier structure, right? So 3 levels. So that is not configured, and that is why it is giving me an error. So let's go and fix it. And the only thing that you have to add here is that is this Dataverse Summit, which is the top level namespace. Is it done? Same thing here. Dataverse Summit is top level namespace. Save and then publish. And refresh. And now no error. And if I now select yes, save it. What happened? Oh, because it's yes. Okay, no, save it, and there you go. Right, so it's working. So let's see if there are any questions before I move on. All right, no questions so far, so good. Yeah, if you have any questions, just drop it in the chat so I can get to those. Now, this is all open source, as I said. So if you want to add any new features, then you can create a issue and you can say whether you want a feature request or whether it is a bug reported. Either of those, I would either me or anyone from the community can create a pull request. For creating a pull request, if you want to contribute to this repository, Then I've given as much details as I want. I've also provided a lot of the features in here as well. So you can go and look into it, like what's happening, how we generate typings, how IntelliSense are generated, but also how to use your typings as well, right? But then I've also provided how to contribute. So contributing guidelines gives you all the details. So not yeah. So contributing guidelines actually gives you those guidelines. Like if you want to register a new command, if you want to use, if you want to add some additional code or expand on any of the code, which are all the folders. Like I have few folders, so how can you expand upon them? If you want to add a new web view or a tree view, whatever you want to do, you can always expand the tool, and I'm accepting PRs as well on this one. And yeah, so far there are planned features. So there were a few planned features that I already completed, like smart matching algorithm and whatnot. There are two main planned features still pending, which is integrating with Dataversify, which Benedict had touched upon in his last presentation, and also initiating plugin project as well. So I wanted this tool to encompass everything that would be beneficial for everyone to use it. So if you have any feature requests or if you find any bugs, let me know, and then I'll try to improve the tool as much as I can. Okay. Well, we still have a few minutes. So oh, there's a question. Would be great to identify the fields on the form similar to how XRM defined types does it. Yes, and that was one of the things that I was also thinking about it too. So right now what I did is I created my own typings, but then Dataversify actually has an ability to create typings itself as well. So when we do the integration with Dataversify, I might get rid of the typings that I'm generating and then just utilize whatever is provided by Dataversify to also create a typings, which also creates typings on form levels, but also gives you an ability to write SDK kind of methods and then do retrieve multiple and all those kind of things. Okay. Yeah, I've looked at some of those options, but I think so Dataversify might be a better option to go with creating the typings, because it also has that SDK like method features where you can do retrieve multiple and work with web API, which makes things a little easier to work with Dataverse. So that's why I'm leaning towards more of using Dataversify features than anything additional extra. Next question is from Joe. How do you display the form element names in Dataverse? That is, labels that appeared beside text box. Not sure I understood your question. Let me read it again. Oh, okay. So you mean how I used this? So this is a fantastic tool created by my friend Natraj. It's called Level Up for Dynamics. So you have a lot of options here where you can say logical names, and it just shows up the logical names for all the attributes. I hope that was your question, Joe. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, great. So let's take 5 minutes and then we can start the next presentation, which will be from Jordi. And this is again following up with, thanks Raz for posting that on the chat. And Jordi is going to show us the new features in Fake XRM Easy,